Welcome to Living Out Loud with your host, Jess Phillips, where we talk all things addictions, codependency, relationships, and the good, bad, and ugly in between. Hi, everybody. My name is Jess Phillips. I'm super grateful you're here. I'm a master's level clinician and a relationship and attachment trauma coach. I help freedom-seeking women regain their confidence, master their triggers, and communicate their needs so they can finally put an end to toxic relationships, low self-worth, feeling like an imposter, and become more authentic, trusting, and secure. I know exactly what it feels like to be spinning in circles, stuck in obsession, and living life with all or nothing thinking. After years of failed relationships, impulsive decisions, yo-yo dieting, and riding emotional roller coasters, I knew I needed to get to the root of my issues and that I couldn't go on like this any longer. And that's exactly why I created the 10-week Secure Self-Coaching Program. I was tired of wasting time and money on professionals that didn't understand me. And I knew that trying to fix my own problems with the same thinking that got me there wasn't going to help me get any closer to my goals. If this sounds like you, feel free to send me a message and we'll set up a free consultation call to see if my program is right for you. You can find the link to my website in the show notes. Now back to the show. Enjoy. Welcome everyone to another episode of Living Out Loud with your host, Jess Phillips. Back on the mic. Like I said, I was going to be pumping out episodes, which I'm feeling pretty good about. Today we're going to be talking about the power of the pause. Now, what does that mean? What does pausing mean? What does pausing look like? And why do we need to pause? It's one of the things that I used to struggle with the most. Number one, I really had no ability to pause in the past when it came down to impulse purchases, impulsive things coming out of my mouth, anger, you name it. I didn't even really know that you could feel a certain way and not have to immediately express it. That was like a very new and foreign concept to me. And it's something that I work with my clients often on today. And I feel like in no matter what the situation, it can be so helpful, right? So whether you're dealing with strong feelings of anger and you feel like you go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds, or you are an impulsive spender, maybe you're struggling with binge eating, no matter what it is, incorporating a pause can be so helpful. And it doesn't necessarily mean, okay, let's pause and we can't go through with it, right? Like I always encourage people, give yourself permission because, like if you're trying to quit something, let's say, and you completely take it off the table and you're like, I'm never going to smoke again, or I'm never going to impulse shop again, or I'm never going to binge eat again, that's going to come with a whole slew of additional restrictions and probably frustration. This is all about practice. So it's just practicing things. And even if you want to practice the pause and then go ahead and do it anyways, at least you've just put an additional step, an additional barrier, an additional amount of space between you and whatever it is that you're about to do. So, I was trying to think about some of the things that I struggled with pausing on the most in the past. And definitely, I mean, we can just start with drugs and alcohol. I don't know too many drug addicts or alcoholics or people who just enjoy a drink or whatever people do today. I don't really foresee myself like in the past being like, should I take a pause before I go out with my friends and get absolutely annihilated? Like life just didn't really work that way. We were all going to get fucked up. That's just what we were doing. There was no pause. I guess for some of the healthier people in my, well, healthy is a stretch, but some of, let's say some of the non-alcoholics and addicts in my life back then who were more like functioning people who continued to go like, I remember I had a good friend and she was like in the middle of doing a master's degree and we partied, you know what I mean? But she would still be able to say like, okay, gonna wrap it up for the night and gonna head home. I have school tomorrow. Whereas I didn't have any of those things going on anyway. So there was really no reason for me to pause. But there was no thinking. I remember even some days I would wake up feeling just so terrible from the night before. I mean, I guess I thought to myself, like, oof, maybe I should take it easy tonight. But the very tricky thing about addiction, and this goes for relationship and love addiction as well, which I'll touch on a little later on. But it's very, very, very hard to incorporate a pause when you've lost power of choice. So for today's episode, I'm going to stick to the topic of pausing when we are not addicted, because pausing when you are addicted is not normally in the cards. We really want to take like a long pause at that point, like an abstinence-based pause for a while, whether that looks like, a couple of months. For some people, they can never drink or use drugs safely again, but whatever that looks like for you, that would probably look like a longer pause. So let's start off in sobriety, right? Like I got sober at 21 years old, and I knew pretty early on in sobriety that I felt better sober and that things were easier sober. Like it did not take a rocket scientist to put that evidence together. It was like, shit, like you're not stealing from people anymore. You're not in conflict with the entire world. You're not filled with guilt, shame, and remorse. You can hold a job. You can act like a normal human being. So I kind of ran with that at the beginning. But when it came to everything else, right? Like sobriety is not easy. Yes, things get better, but then you have to manage all of it's not just because you put the drink and the drug down that all of a sudden you have total control over your impulses and you get sober and you're in this like super healthy emotional state. You're not. You definitely feel physically better, and life gets better, but it's a lot of work to start doing the deeper digging, and that did not come right away for me, because I was still very excitable. I mean, I was young, 21. Like, it's amazing too, looking back. I thought I was like so mature and that like I knew a bunch of shit. And it's like, what do you know at 21? You don't know anything at 21. But anyways, I thought I did. And my God, was I like so impulsive. First of all, just dealing with the leftover anger and resentment and frustration, whether it was pointed to myself or to somebody else, there's a lot cooking under there. And the tricky thing, I heard an amazing recovery speaker a couple of weeks ago, and he said, the only thing worse than bad luck in early sobriety is good luck. And if you had said that to me almost 18 years ago, I wouldn't have understood what you were saying, but now it's true. If we get too much back before we're able to emotionally handle it, we're going to torch it to the ground. And thank God I did not have a lot when I first got sober, I mean, I got things back relatively quickly, but I've seen people get sober before, and if you're doing the work at the same time and you can emotionally handle it, great, good for you. I want people to be successful. But for the people who, like myself, who had not done, I didn't even really know about the emotional work. Like I really just thought like, oh, I was going to get sober and staying abstinent would fix everything inside, but it doesn't. But thank God I didn't get anything back too quickly, because the only thing I could handle was my job at the coffee shop. I went back to an adult education center to get my high school diploma. And even that, the classes were spaced apart. I was able to, go at that little by slowly. I didn't have very much money. I didn't have a driver's license and I didn't have a lot going on. And thank God, because if I had a lot going on with the emotional temperament that I had in early recovery or at 21 years old, it would have been a complete disaster, because even the little bit that I did have, I was still very emotionally up and down. And I remember, I remember I don't know. I was probably like a year sober, maybe 2 years sober, and I got my first credit card. And thank God I did not have access to credit when I was drinking or using, because I would probably still be paying off the damage from that today. So I went out and I applied for a credit card, and I don't know, I think the limit was like $2,000 maybe. And I was at Fairview, which is a mall here in the West Island of Montreal. And I was with my best friend, and we went into this store called Style Exchange, which I know a lot of listeners will be laughing at today. It was this like awesome name brand only store, like way out of my league, so expensive. I worked at Starbucks. I didn't have any money. And I tried on this para jumper jacket, and they were like super popular back then. And I don't remember. I think it was like $1,200. And then my best friend looked at me. She was like, "Are you going to get it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have a credit card now." And to me, it was just like there was no pause, there was no understanding of like how credit even worked back then. It was just like, yeah, this is like layaway and I want it and it looks good and it's gonna make me look good. And there was no separation between the excitement inside and what I was about to do. And I remember swiping my credit card, buying the jacket, and like we all know, right? Like, and I talk about this often. I love shopping. I love fashion. I love interior design. I love things, but it has taken me years to understand the difference between like saving up for something and going out and impulsively purchasing something. And that, my friends, was a wildly impulsive purchase. And then my genius plan of like, I don't know what I thought I was going to be paying like $100 a month for 2 years, but there's a little thing called interest. And that started piling on top of each other, and then probably started making more purchases on top of that. And it was just a bit of a mess, right? Like there was no reality check in the moment where it's like, okay, Jess, how much money is coming in versus the price of this item that you want. It was just like, nope, this is making me feel. I like to feel up. This is making me feel up. Let's go. Let's purchase. So that was always a big struggle for me. Food, there wasn't any pause when it came to food, and food's a tricky one, and we want to be careful that we don't border into like shaming ourselves or putting the food into good or bad categories. There are some days where it's like, okay, I'm overtired, I've worked a ton, I want to chill, I want to order this for dinner, and it's not going to be the healthiest, but that's a conscious decision that I'm making. That's one thing. That's what it looks like for me today. Whereas back then, it was a lot of the same impulsive, I don't feel good. I don't care how much it costs. I want comfort and relief now. So I'm going to order whatever pizza, this and that, to basically alleviate whatever I was experiencing in the moment. And now today, thank God, there's a lot more pause around that. And pausing, and also gentle language, right? Like allowing yourself the permission to say, okay, here's door A. You're tired. If you order the pizza, Jess, go ahead. But let's play the tape forward, and let's ask ourselves, how are we going to feel after we eat that pizza? Right? Do you want to spend like, I don't know. I don't know how people do it today. And I'm like the furthest thing from frugal, but things like Uber Eats and DoorDash, I don't know. It breaks my fucking heart. I swear, I can't remember what the last thing I ordered was. And by the time it got to my door, it was almost $40. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, good for them. It's genius. The company's probably making billions of dollars, but like, I don't know. I can't justify $40 for like a plate of Amirs. It really hurts. So I asked myself, okay, are you hungry? Right? Because there's a very big difference also between actually being hungry and being lonely, being bored, being upset, being emotional, whatever it is. So I say, okay, are you hungry? Is this going to make you feel better? And sometimes today the answer is yes. It's like a Sunday, I'm bumming around. That's what I feel like doing. I know it's not going to happen again probably for like another month. go ahead. But if the answer is, I'm probably going to eat a lot more than I would, because there's also a big difference between ordering a medium pizza and a lava cake and smashing that alone versus going out with friends and like eating a really nice meal. Like my girlfriend and I went out the other day and we went to the spa and it was lovely. And then afterwards, she's like, what should we eat? We were both starving. She's like, I want a good burger. And I was like, I want a good burger. And we went out and we had a good burger. And that was that. You know, the dessert menu even came. This is how I know I have progressed. The dessert menu came and she's like, do you guys want anything? And we both looked and we're like, not really. Whereas before, no pause. It would have been like, we're out. This would have been my logic. I've already eaten the burger. I've already had bad food. I've already made a mistake, in air quotes. You might as well open up the calorie door and eat as much as possible. Where it's like, your body doesn't really know what you're doing and doesn't know anything about door opening. A calorie is a calorie, right? So it's like, if I'm done after the burger, just walk away after the burger. So we did that and it was lovely. But there's a big difference between doing that and eating alone or binging alone or using alone, right? Like, and if you want to ask yourself if you have any addiction issues, right? Watch how you use alone versus how you use in public. And I don't know about you guys, but I definitely do not binge on food the same way I do at home as I do in public. I'm like, anybody want to share something? Anybody want a little bite of this dessert or whatever? Whereas at home, I'm like fucking 5 bags deep in fuzzy peaches and I'm like eating till I feel like I'm going to be sick. That's a no-go. That's a no-go. It doesn't make me feel good. So if the answer is door B and I'm going to stuff myself till I feel sick, I can ask myself, like, is there anything else that you can do right now? And still giving myself the permission, go ahead. You want to order the food, that's fine. But like, what else can I do during that pause? Can I call someone? Which I have before. I've been at the grocery store once. I remember when I was still in school and I was stressed to the point of like nervous breakdown stressed. And I deliberately walked to the grocery store and I was going to buy all this junk food. And I was just having this moment of like, oh, I don't really want to be doing this. I don't want to be spending this money. And I ended up calling somebody else in recovery and they were really gentle about it. And we had this beautiful talk and I actually put everything back, walked away and walked out of the store, which was incredible. So that's a good example of a pause. Another beautiful thing that you can incorporate during a pause is a walk, right? It is amazing how much a walk can change everything. You can literally leave the house in one mood and come back in another mood, and it's free, right? So it's like, okay, how about I go for a walk, even if it's not a long walk, go around the block twice, come back, check in with how you feel. Even that small amount of time can incorporate such a healthy pause between you and the impulsive action. And don't forget too, right? You start moving your body, you're going to increase your dopamine, you're going to increase all of these pleasurable feelings that you are not able to access when you're lying on the couch scrolling on TikTok or watching TV. So going for a walk is a great pause in terms of binge eating struggles, calling someone, just doing a very small task. And it's hard, right? Like once the body is at rest, don't forget it wants to stay at rest. And if you're constantly fighting with your mind or waiting for motivation, it's not going to come, right? I rarely all of a sudden I get this like lightning bolt of motivation and I'm like, yay, can't wait to go clean the fucking kitchen. It doesn't come. It only comes after I start cleaning the kitchen. So just getting off the couch, just saying, okay, I'm going to take a little half an hour break from TV watching or doom scrolling on my phone and I'm going to put the laundry away. I'm going to put the dishes away. I'm going to clean up my room a little bit. Another great pause because you're now into action. And getting into action is just a great way to get out of your head. The third kind of topic I want to talk about when it comes to pausing is the emotional pause. And this is probably one of the most difficult ones. And this has so many different subtopics And this is where I often trail off on these podcasts is like, holy shit, how do I talk about these little subtopics all in one umbrella term of pausing when it comes to emotion? But let's just break it down super quick. I'll see how I do. So, number one, anger, right? What's the most common thing that you hear when it comes to anger is road rage. I can't bite my tongue when somebody says something ridiculous or they're in my face, or I go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. And first things first, 0 to 102 seconds is actually a myth. It's not how your body works. It's not how your nervous system works. If we were to really break down your anger on a scale from 0 to 10, it's actually not physically possible for you to be on the 0 scale of anger if I were to assess you and then all of a sudden go to a 10. Unless, and we're not talking about this for the sake of this podcast, unless there's somebody in your face and you're being like attacked or violently threatened, or somebody's in danger, or you witness something horrific and you go to save somebody, fine. Your body can do incredible things and you could go probably from like 0 to superhero, but we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about just like, let's say you're in traffic and somebody cuts you off and then the person's like, I can't control it. I have road rage. And it's like, my friend, you don't have road rage, you have rage inside of you, right? And we really want to take a look at that because the road is just the perfect moving target for your rage to come out. Nobody actually really has road rage unless you're like a trucker and you're on the road all day and you're just fed up. But if you go onto the road and somebody cuts you off and you flip out, there's a lot more cooking underneath the hood than you probably would like to think. So, you know, if somebody is not able or is unwilling to address a lot of the emotions underneath that rage, it would probably be pretty hard to incorporate a pause. They might not be interested in pausing. But if you are feeling quite angry and experiencing a lot of road rage, the best chance you have at being able to incorporate the pause is to remind yourself that this is just the trigger, right? The person cutting you off is just the trigger. And, you know, anyways, you know what? I'm actually going to pause. There was a story that I was going to share, but it's like, it's almost too, and I'm like, okay with sharing some of my embarrassing stories, but this one was fucking bad. And I think I still feel shame about it. But anyways, it happened on the road. Little Miss Princess over here was in such a rush and I started honking. And when I pulled up, and I'm not going to get into detail about it, but when I pulled up to see what I was honking at, I was humble to the point where I wanted to crawl under a rock and die. And that I think was the last time that unless somebody's coming close to like hitting me or I'm in danger, I think that was the last time that I ever honked or like sped around somebody because I was so humiliated. And I guess sometimes it takes those moments because I was like, first of all, why are you so important right now? Why are you in such a rush? And why is your nervous system so dysregulated? So the fact that I was able to start asking myself those questions now when I'm on the road, and we all have our days, that's fine, right? But if you are chronically irritated on the road, there's something deeper going on. So the first suggestion that I would have would be to start looking a little bit deeper at what's going on, so that you can experience more of a pause on the road. You know, if somebody wants to be a real dick and cut me off last minute, the majority of the time, I'm like, go ahead. Really, go ahead. Like, it's not worth me because what do, right? We get all hot and annoyed and we drive up to each other and then what, we're going to stare at each other. I hate that. I hate all of that now. Like, I'm just so not interested unless I am like driving to the hospital in some type of emergency. Go right ahead. I'm really not in that much of a rush. Actually, I have a perfect example of pausing last week I had an appointment for an x-ray, and I had about 45 minutes before the appointment, and I had something that I had to return from Amazon, and I had to go to the post office, the Post Canada here in the Pharmaprix close to me. And it was like lunchtime. I figured I had a ton of time, and it was a huge box. And I parked and I walked the box in, and I turned down the aisle, and there was like 5 people in line. I was like, uh-oh. But I was like, whatever, it'll be fine. It'll be quick. And I looked down at my phone, and I had been standing there for 20 minutes. Okay. And I was feeling all right. I was having a good day. Wasn't anything boiling underneath, but I started to watch everybody, especially the very next guy that was up in line. This guy was fucking fuming. He was like starting to talk under his breath, and it was this young girl working. Usually there's 2 people, and there was only one person at this time. I don't know if the other guy was on lunch or whatever, but also this lovely young girl was also working at the speed of molasses, and that wasn't helping anybody. And the guy who was at the counter, I don't know. I don't know. It's none of my business, but I don't know what this guy bought. I don't know what he was returning. But this guy had like fucking 12 packages, and this poor young girl had to print out all of the return labels and was putting them on so slow. It was just, and I smiled to myself because I just pictured myself in that line 10 years ago. I would have been fuming along with this other guy. I would have started to like feed off of the other person's energy. And it's almost like this self-righteousness used to come out, almost like, how dare you take so long and have me wait. It's almost like a bit embarrassing to say it out loud, but that's truly how I thought. And the tricky thing is that if it was me who was at the actual counter returning all the packages, I would have been like, too bad for you guys, you can just chill and wait. But because it was happening to me, right, the feelings would have been completely different. And I looked down at my phone and I was like, okay, if you continue to stay in this line, you are probably going to be late for your x-ray appointment that you have now waited about 9 months for. And then the second beautiful thought in my mind was, it's not this person's fault or Pharmaprix's fault that I have an appointment to leave to after this. And I just had this quiet voice inside that said, you should probably leave. But also part of me was like, fuck, I already invested 20 minutes of my time waiting here. And I'm like, just get in the car. And I just took my package and I left. And I went to my appointment, and I was like 5 minutes early, thank God, because I don't like being late. I was 5 minutes early, had the appointment, and then there where my x-ray appointment was across the street was another Post Canada, and I walked in and there was no line, and I dropped the package off. So that's a great example of pausing and not feeding into that anger or the energy of everybody else in that lineup, because I don't want to feel that way. And I don't want that poor girl to feel that way who's working there, because trust me, this girl could feel it. The looks, people were burning a hole through the side of this poor girl's head, because you're taking all of our super precious time. Like it's very egotistical and very self-centered. And the best thing for me to do in that moment was just to walk away. So that was just a giant pause. So when it comes to anger, it's really a lot of the pausing deal is about nervous system regulation, and it's about doing the deeper work. Because if I am walking around the world just vibrating, right? Which I didn't even know you weren't supposed to feel that way. I didn't know you weren't supposed to always be on edge. I thought it was just a part of my personality. I was like the cuckoo hyper one who was I would just say like, "Oh, I'm such an addict," or "I'm just so impulsive," or I'm just like this. Like I'm just hyperactive and I don't have a lot of impulse control." And it's like, that wasn't a good enough answer for me at a certain point. It was like, "No, like what can I do about it?" And it's not to say that I don't have those days today. I do have those days, but I handle those days differently. So let's take PMS, for example, and all of my male listeners can go and do something else for a second and thank your lucky stars that you don't have to feel this way every 28 days. But I used to really struggle with my PMS and hormones. And there would be one day in particular where I would wake up and I literally could feel the evil just running, coursing through my veins. And it would be the perfect day for me to pick a fight. I remember a relationship that I was in, this poor person, I swear to God, every 28 days I'd break up with this person. And and it wouldn't even be conscious. Like I wouldn't even see myself doing it. It was just like it felt so real in the moment and it felt so justified in the moment. And I was just like looking for fights at that point. And there wasn't a lot of pause. Whereas today, it's a lot better, thank God. But there still will be months where I'm like, okay, here it is. Let's acknowledge the evil running through my veins. And number one, I can tell people about it. Obviously, like close, safe people, but like let's say I go to the clinic and I'll share with the team, like, yep, this is how I'm feeling today. So it's kind of like I out myself, like I tell on myself a little bit, and that creates a nice pause and a nice buffer for me. You know who I don't have to remind is my mother, because the moment she senses I'm a little bit off, even at 38 years old, she'd be like, honey, are you getting your period? I'm like, Mom, I fucking want to kill you when you say that. I just want you to know that I want to kill you when you say that. Yes, I am. Yes, you're right, but please stop asking. So her, she doesn't have to guess. She just knows. Another really helpful tool was I got a calendar, like a period tracker on my phone, and that will give me like a 3 to 5 day warning, which is really nice, right? Which I like can make a public service announcement if I wanted to and let everybody know. Don't don't let's just hang out next week, we don't have to see each other today. And a lot of that pause for me today can look like I'm just going to have a quiet day. I'm going to have a self-care day. I am maybe not going to go meet up with anybody. I am going to do some gentle exercise, just like a lot of awareness about what I would need in that moment, which I was not able to do in the past. So that is a really, really helpful way to put some space, because and I know a lot of men don't understand this, but like there's just the ladies know there's just nothing you can do about it some months. Like there's nothing that you could say. The way that you're chewing is wrong. The way that the world is wrong. Everything's wrong. Just move out of my way because everything's wrong. And it's like I don't need to be around people when I feel that way. So that's a great little pause as well. So anger, number one, if you are really struggling with feeling, and I'm talking about like chronic feelings of anger, if you're angry 5 days out of the 7 per week, there's only probably a pause is going to be damage control, which is fine, right? It's a great place to start, but you're going to want to go a little bit deeper and ask yourself, why am I so angry? Everybody gets angry. Anger is healthy. It's normal, but chronic anger is not. So, number one, ask yourself, what's going on? Who can I reach out to? Is there some deeper work that I can do? We've covered some binge eating, pausing tactics, and some days you just need to eat the food, and that's okay too. PMS, pausing tactics. Now let's get to the final kind of subsection of where the pause can be really helpful is in relationships. So let's talk about romantic relationships, friendships, and probably the most difficult of all our family relationships. There was no pause for me. If anything, like less pause served me back then because like you needed to wear like a bulletproof vest at some of our holiday gatherings because, well, number one, my father was and still is a very funny guy, but he's like British funny and very sarcastic and often at the expense of myself or others. So I grew up with that type of humor and I thought that everybody liked that type of humor. And when we all got together, especially other family members who were also that way inclined, you had to be ready. Like you had to be like armed and ready to protect yourself or to be able to give it right back. And it's where a lot of like my quick wit has come from, but it's a softened wit now. Like I really don't want my wit to be at the expense of other people's feelings. But back then it was really like, okay, like you want to do this? Let's do this. So there was no pause, and I would often leave these kind of family dinners or holidays or whatever feeling like just really icky, and somebody always took it too far. Maybe, I mean, there wasn't a lot of drinking in my household, but like I'm thinking of like friend gatherings or whatever it was, and somebody always just pushed it, and then somebody would leave with their feelings hurt. Now today, one of the best things that I can do to pause around family members, it doesn't really get to me so much with like friends or in relationships is that's not true. That's a lie. That's a lie. Relationships can be quite triggering. Like when I want to talk, I want to talk. And I have had to start to accept the fact that not everybody's mind works as fast as mine does, and they don't know what to say in the moment. And me pushing in the moment is not going to help anybody. So I have learned to be able to put a pin in things and revisit it. But in terms of family relationships, there has been so many times now where I can feel it surface and I can feel myself get on the defense or the attack and just bite my tongue. A lot of this work too is not always about winning. It's not always about having the perfect response or the perfect comeback. Sometimes it's just about locking it up. And it really works. It really works. I was on the phone with a family member last week and they said something like absolutely ridiculous that used to and would have triggered the shit out of me 10 years ago. And I just stayed silent. And it felt like a very, very long silence. But it was really interesting to see that the other person almost realized through my silence that it probably was not the appropriate thing to say. And then they just switched the topic. And I was like, wow, that worked. That worked. I don't need to get all worked up or I don't need to get in a big fight over something because this person and I have come through loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of work. This person is not going to change. I had to drop the expectation of this person changing. And that's disappointing and that's okay. But me challenging their statement or getting all upset and I'm talking about upset, like there was a lot of family conflict that would shake me for days after. And it's like, nope, I don't want to do that. I don't want to give anybody's comment the power to disturb me for days anymore. Absolutely not. So I just said nothing. I just said nothing. And then they continued talking about something else. And I was like, wow. And also too, it happened in person a couple of weeks ago. I felt I wasn't getting like the validation for something that I did. I can't remember what it was exactly, but I felt myself like cooking inside. And I was like, okay, say this next or say this. And I was like, pipe down. You are trying to drink from the wrong well right now. Jess, that you are not going to get what you wanted to get from this interaction. And And I just kind of chilled out, sat back in my seat, and just started to talk about something else. And guys, it is so freeing. And this this is not to say that people should just become like a doormat and then let, people say whatever or let everything roll off their back. Like, there's a big difference between being overly agreeable, borderline passive aggressive, and then also swinging to the complete other side of being very aggressive with no pause. We want to land somewhere in the middle. And what the middle is assertiveness, right? And sometimes the most assertive thing I can do is shut my mouth and just stay still inside, right? Because it's also quite confusing, because as a person in recovery, I'm encouraged to practice emotional sobriety and practice spiritual principles in all of my affairs. And me snapping at someone or stooping to their level or whatever that looks like is really not spiritual at all. It's actually a very fearful response to a fearful situation. And I don't have to do that anymore. And then sometimes I do. And that's totally okay too, right? Like, I'm not striving for perfection here. But what I am striving for is, like, okay, I fucked up a couple of times this year instead of like 4 times a month or 8 times a month, which is huge progress. So, okay, just to recap, because I actually timed myself this time, I'm already at 41 and a half minutes. We're just gonna drop the mini episode thing. It was a cute idea. It was very cute. Maybe one day. Today's not that day. I don't think I do very many things in mini versions anyways. So what have we covered? Pausing in terms of impulse buying. I know I didn't really go into great detail. And if you want more detail, I did an episode on impulsive spending, so you can go and listen to that. But here's just one little quick note. I read or I watched, I can't remember. Anyways, Oprah was going to buy or walked into a Hermes store somewhere, I don't remember where, and obviously all the sales associates were like super jacked that she was in there and they were going to like make a commission or whatever, and she found this Birkin bag that she loved, and we're looking at like 30,000 pounds, which translates to like $50,000-$60,000 Canadian, for a purse. She loved it, and she said to herself she's going to think about it and wait 24 hours, and if she still wants it tomorrow, she'll go back and get it. And like, this is fucking Oprah. So if Oprah's doing that, I should probably do that when I'm out shopping. So impulsive spending, we covered pausing when it comes to binge eating, asking yourself, and also to a very helpful question if you're struggling with binge eating. If you're not hungry for like a chicken breast and sweet potato and vegetables, you're probably not hungry, right? Like, if you want like pizza or chicken nuggets or a sundae, and again, not shaming any of those foods, sometimes you need those foods, but like, if that's what you're craving, you're probably just craving. You're not actually hungry. Also covered anger, when it comes to anger, when it comes to road rage. And just try it. You know what I mean? Like, say you're just having a shit day or you didn't sleep. That's another big one. Not sleeping, very hard to pause, very hard. And again, all of that is pointing to nervous system dysregulation. So that can just pile on, whether it's conflict that you're in, whether it's not sleeping, maybe you haven't been exercising or eating well. That's a snowball effect, right? And that snowball is just going to keep growing and growing and growing. And you're going to start looking for a perfect moving target to release all your frustration out on. So it's really less about what's in front of you, right? Whether it's the person standing in line at the mailbox, the post office is what I'm trying to say, or it's the guy on the road. It's really less about the actual trigger and a lot more about what's going on inside. But yeah, to start to take a look at that anger, because one sure way to tell that you are on your path of healing, whatever that looks like for you, is really being able to smile and walk away. People have said absolutely ridiculous things in front of me looking for attention in the past few years, and I will just smile and walk away or say nothing. Or if they're really, really like just really acting insane, I'll look them dead in the eye and ask them if they're okay. They hate that one. I'm just like, are you okay? Like, do you need something right now? Because me getting all hot and bothered and stooping to their level and arguing with them, that's exactly what they want. And I'm not doing that. I'm not ruining my day over somebody else's misery. So I hope this was helpful. Those are all the kind of major areas that I practice pause in. And then another one, and this goes into the shopping too, is like the whole online shopping thing. If you're struggling with shopping, please don't shop online. It's probably one of the worst things that you can do. It's a complete disconnection from having cash in hand, being at the store, maybe shopping with a support system, somebody that can go with you. Did you save up this money? Did you put it aside? We all do it. But again, anything that you're doing chronically or doing very often, that's the stuff you want to pay attention to, right? Like if you're shopping here and there online, there's no problem. If bark at somebody once a year, there's not really a problem. Welcome to the human race. You're human. But we want to start looking at the things that we're engaging in on a more regular basis, because that's the stuff that deserves more of our attention. Okay, guys, 46 minutes, 22 seconds. I'm out of here. Hope this was helpful. Until next time, bye. Thanks everyone for listening and supporting Living Out Loud. Be sure to tune in next week for another fun, juicy episode.